Hello, this is Scotty Reed with a Black Talk Radio News commentary. In this episode, I want to focus on the commentary that I'm seeing in relation to burning buildings in Minneapolis in the wake of the murder of George Floyd, in the wake of a lack of an arrest of the person who clearly murdered him and the other people who clearly helped him murder George Floyd. There has not been an arrest, and people are out there mad and angry and feeling powerless as they always do. And so they taking it out on corporations or what have you. Look, I ain't in the minds of anybody that's out there participating in the looting or the burning. And I don't know why they did that. Okay. But I do know U.S. history. I'm a big student of history, period, but especially U.S. history. Let's not pretend like the police don't cause these things to happen, or if the authorities in the government don't cause people to riot and to, act violently in destroying property and what have you. But first, let's go ahead and look at this tweet that I found by Jamal Green, who was a surrogate for Bernie Sanders. I think he also ran for mayor of Chicago at one time and lost. And he's still out there as an activist putting out work. So he was there in Minneapolis when this all went down. And this is what he said as I read this tweet. We were shot with rubber bullets, tear gas, pellet guns in the head, etc. The police were not peaceful. They started the riots as they always do. Why even be out there just to bother folks? I was running from large bombs they were throwing at us. Not how you disperse a crowd. And so, I saw some of those videos, and the police were indiscriminately popping off rounds into the crowd. And Minneapolis has a history of uprisings against police violence and what have you. But listen, I don't have to condemn anyone. I don't have to condemn the act of a riot. No, I don't need to be politically correct. And that is what I feel like many people in the news media and even regular everyday Joes and Janes are being politically correct. For example, a person said, I never understood why people burn down the places where they have to shop, where they live, and what have you. Well, how do you know those people lived in that section of town? Those people traveled to where the police precinct was. How do you know that was quote unquote their community? Okay. So I'm not going to condemn riots. If you are going to condemn riots, then you need to condemn the very founding of the United States. All right. The American Revolution, when it occurred, which was a violent war against the British crown, people, quote unquote, fighting for their freedom and their liberty. Well, one of the battle cries that they had was the Boston Massacre. What happened with the Boston Massacre? Well, British soldiers who were policing the colonists brutalized a young teenager, a young colonist. And so Crispus Attucks, a Afro-Indian man, black man, led some other colonists to go confront the police or the British soldiers who were policing them. And they were not nice and cordial about it. They went to brawl with these British soldiers. And the result was a massacre where all these people were gunned down. Crispus Attucks being the first casualty of the so-called American Revolution, but he doesn't get much recognition. A black man standing up to police brutality is what sparked the Boston response to police brutality, which the police, the British soldiers in this case, used deadly force against those colonists, and thus the American Revolution. What talk about destruction of property? What about the Boston Tea Party? Okay, protesting, what economic conditions and what have you. You have these colonists who disguise themselves as First Nation indigenous folks, and they board this ship, and then they dump all the tea, destruction of property, into the Boston Harbor. I assume, I presume. Okay, I mean, if you go out throughout U.S. history, you will find many, many instances of the citizens rising up against the government and its representatives, who are law enforcement or what have you. So, I mean, are you going to condemn Nat Turner's rebellion? Are you going to condemn John Brown? Are you going to condemn anybody who rose up using violence to attack the violent institution of slavery? Well, are you going to condemn Abraham Lincoln for putting down those southern states who didn't believe him when he said he had no intention of abolishing slavery? He just wanted to keep it from spreading to the new territories, the new land that was being stolen from indigenous Americans and what have you. I mean, come on. This government responds to threats with violence. Okay, we got a whole military industrial complex that profits off of the tools of violence. So don't ask me to condemn a few buildings being burned, especially Targets. Target uses prison slave labor. Unless they divested themselves of utilizing prison slave labor to positively affect their bottom line. I haven't read anything about them divesting from there. I've read about banks that we have called out divesting from underwriting the private prison industry. A number of banks. Okay, has Target divested itself of using prison slave labor? Okay, so don't ask me to be sympathetic to the shareholders of the Target Corporation. The insurance will pay for the destruction of those buildings. They can build a brand new building. Okay, it can be restored or what have you. But you know what can't be restored? George Floyd's life and the multitude of victims who have found themselves on the wrong end of a gun or the wrong end of a knee, in this case, from the police. All this political correctness, I ain't trying to hear it, and I'm not trying to practice it. Okay? You can't condemn those citizens of Minneapolis' righteous anger and reaction if you don't condemn the United States for using violence. I think Martin Luther King Jr. said something about I can no longer condemn, those who use violence to fight oppression if I don't call out the United States government, the greatest purveyor of violence on the face of the planet. So yeah, miss me with the political correctness concerning violence and riots. Riots are as American as apple pie. This has been Scotty Reed with a Black Talk. This has been Scotty Reed with a Black Talk Radio News Commentary. Please continue to support the work of the North Carolina-based nonprofit Black Talk Media Project. Your donations is what are sustaining the Black Talk Radio Network and any other media operations that we may take on in the future. We are 100% corporate free. Peace and blessings to all.